The Opposite Effect by Gawain Gnosta. We all of us fantasize, I think. I believe that it's a natural, normal thing to wish for things to be better, even impossibly better. Some girl you want to lay, you imagine what it would be like, what she looks like unburdened by clothing, maybe even fantasizing the exact situation. Roses, wine, romance, love, whatever you're into, your imagination is the only limit. It's not just sex. Maybe you fantasize about superpowers, the ability to become invisible, to observe others without their knowledge, or to steal things you covet, or for any perverse reason you might imagine. No limit but your mind. You want to fly? Imagine it. You can do whatever you want in a fantasy. I'm sure some of us have come up with a fantasy about being able to read the thoughts of others. I know I have. I think that would be beneficial for multiple reasons. A pretty girl. Is she into me? Is she not into me? What can I possibly say to make her interested in me? Not just sex again. How can I get this job? What can I possibly do to make up my wrongdoing? What does this person in this situation believe I should say to get exactly what I want? Then I just fucking say it. It would make life simpler. Fantasizing is fun. That would be the superpower I would love to have. Reading thoughts. Shit. Poker would be a breeze. Life would be a breeze. Financially, sexually, for everything. You would certainly know who your true friends are. I even took it a step further, of course, imagining the unwanted consequences. People will always think negatively of you eventually, just as you might occasionally think negatively of your mother or your best friend. Also, what if people think in a different language? You couldn't understand that. What if their thought processes were so different than your own? I don't always think in correct sentences, or even English words. Maybe I think up an image of breasts, or pizza, or anything. Sometimes things pop into my head in images and I don't even want them to. How can you interpret that? Maybe you think someone wants a kitten, but they really want to kill all cats. There was one thing I never thought of until it happened. I don't know why anyone would think of it. Fantasy is essentially thinking about things that you want. Maybe you imagine a worst-case scenario in certain situations, but I bet you never could have imagined before reading this the opposite of a fantasy. Looking back now, I suppose that the first real incident occurred yesterday morning. I was heading out the door to work. I often see Ms. Superbitch in the morning getting her paper. I don't know anyone else who still gets a paper delivered to her door, but she does. I never even noticed what newspaper it was, as I have a habit of not caring very much what other people do, especially old people. Of course, I do think it's slightly odd that someone still gets a physical paper made with real paper, but it's just not odd enough to bother looking at the paper. Ms. Superbitch, normally pleasant and disarming, almost snarled at me. Well, allow me to digress. Ms. Superbitch is actually Ms., and she'll correct you too if you opt for Miss or Mrs. Suckovich. I'm not really sure the origin of her surname, and I really don't care. There isn't much she can do to further any interest I have, allowing me to not care about her, and she's actually quite a bitch. She was the one who complained to the Homeowners Association when I got the automatic garage door because the color didn't match the monotone gray boredom of everyone else's garage doors. She called the police one night before 10 p.m. because she thought my TV was too loud. Ms. Superbitch is also quite fond of telling anyone she can briefly capture with words how they can be a better person. The advice usually reflects qualities that she possesses or believes that she possesses. Honestly, she's just a bitch, hence my name for her, Superbitch. I remember thinking Superbitch as I smiled and nodded. She glared at me, then actually snarled. Who the hell snarls? I didn't think too much about it at the time. She could be moody, and other neighbors have called her eccentric at times. Bitchy is a better word in my opinion, more accurate and descriptive. Looking back now, that was the beginning of what was to be the worst day of my life so far. Another minor thing that happened on the way to work, so minor that I didn't consider it too terribly relevant at the time. I drive on the freeway for approximately 20 minutes of my 30-minute commute. I like to drive fast. Another car, some rust-colored piece of shit, cut me off. By that I mean that the asshole wasn't paying attention to what other drivers were doing. I was going about 75 when he pulled in front of me, causing me to apply the brakes and slow down to about 55 miles per hour. I always consider that sort of behavior to be quite rude. There didn't seem to be any reason for him to do that. He wasn't passing anyone, didn't seem to be interested in getting off the freeway, just driving like an idiot. I'm sure that most people who have driven for any length of time realize that the road is full of dipshits who should not have licenses. If you're not aware of this, you are probably part of the fucking problem. Fucking asshole, I thought. Seconds later, his driver's side window was down and his arm was out of the window. Slowly he extended his middle finger. The first time it clicked that something was wrong, seriously fucking wrong, was when I arrived at work. I began to realize what exactly was happening, or what seemed to be happening, as technically it should really be impossible. Janet, our receptionist, really isn't much to look at when all you can see is her face. Her eyes seem a little close together, her nose is a little too long, and her skin is really pallid and slightly off-putting. However, that is only just a description of her when all you can see is her face. Her body is something else entirely. When I arrived back at work, she was just returning to her desk. She smiled her typical smile, and I smiled mine. My eyes happened to drift down as she turned to return to her desk. Her pantyhose were black, and her almost crimson-colored skirt was a bit tighter than usual. My eyes happened to rest upon her butt, where I could clearly discern the exact shape of what was lurking, maybe just waiting, beneath her clothing. Nice ass, I thought. When Janet turned back to look at me, after sitting down, she was no longer smiling. She seemed a little shocked or unsettled about something. Unfortunately, my thoughts lingered. I pictured myself grabbing her ass. I imagined the flesh, the color of it, what it felt like. I'd like to pound the shit out of that ass. Mr. Sutman, that is completely inappropriate, especially in this day and age. Anger had replaced the confusion on her face. Excuse me? The image of her nude rear dissipated in my mind. The ever so slight arousal that was coming on was suddenly extinguished as well. No, I don't think I will excuse you. I am happily married, and even if I weren't, that is no way to talk to a woman, especially a colleague. What do you mean? I stammered. Then I thought, did I say that shit out loud? I'm very sure that you're aware of what you did. She was clearly angry, and it seemed she was getting angrier. Normally, as part of my job, I could talk myself out of any situation. But it felt like I was just struck a hard blow, and an extremely rare thing occurred. I was lost for words, or at least appropriate words to save my ass and get me out of the situation. I'm terribly sorry, Janet. I haven't been feeling very well lately. Lame, Jack. Fucking stupid thing to say. As I quickly left the small reception area, with Janet glowering at me, I was to realize later that there was something beneath the anger. She said something that made me break out in a cold sweat. Yes, that was a very stupid thing to say. When I got to my cubicle, I'll have to get back to that later, I was extremely uncomfortable. Am I going crazy? What the fuck was that? A number of thoughts soared through my head. When I calmed down a bit, they altered. I'm a salesman, and I'm a damn good one. I have a knack for saying the right thing at the right time. I close over 90% of the time. Now this is a twofold closing method. First I use a carrot, then I use the stick. If they don't want to bite on the carrot, then they get the fucking stick. As a mental exercise, I often work on both these methods. The first one, manipulation, is subtle. You alter your words based on what you know of the person. You make them think that they could get whatever they want if they buy overpriced automotive parts from you. It goes beyond that, and I use it in my daily life to get virtually anything. But I sell auto parts by trade. I began on reflecting on what I said to Janet. This was not a good sales comment, and I'm better than that. I was flustered, and I'm rarely flustered. Instead of some stupid shit like, I'm not feeling well, I should have said, sorry, I know it was inappropriate. I really didn't mean to offend you, but you look so beautiful today. Shit, give her an award-winning smile, a little charm. I can still fix this. Or, you misheard me, Janet. I have nothing but respect for you. I certainly don't view women that way. As a matter of fact, what are you mumbling about? Came a voice breaking me out of my mental exercises. It was Nerd Boy, or Sam, or whatever the fuck his name is. Sean? Nerd Boy, Nerd Boy, Nerd Boy. I used to be his superior, and he seemed to have respected me enough not to piss me off. After an overhaul of the way management was run, I was no longer a team leader. Essentially, I was the same rank as the other drones in the office. Most of them still deferred to my better sales experience and the fact that I used to be above them, but I had a sense that Nerd Boy's respect was diminishing. Now I know I wasn't saying anything. Not mumbling anything. Get to work. Sir, yes, sir, he said sarcastically. What if he's reading my thoughts? Went through my mind. Silly, a ludicrous idea. That's not even possible. Yeah, okay, I'm reading your thoughts, Suit. I didn't think anything for a few moments. I didn't know what to think. Now I look back and realize he had as much disdain for me as I did for him, and he also had a nickname for me. He is a nerd in the traditional sense, quoting Star Trek bullshit, playing games with his friends when he's off work, and even bragging about it at work instead of appropriately hiding the fact that he had nothing to better do with his time. Going to fucking Comic-Con. The list is endless. He calls me Suit? The primary thing bothering me was that I was pretty sure he was reading my thoughts. I put my hand in my mouth and pinched my lips together between my thumb and index finger, and then squeezed relatively tightly. I wanted to test this. What would offend a nerd? I pushed a thought to the top of my head, enunciating each word clearly so that I could hear my own voice uttering the phrase in my mind. Game of Thrones is boring. There was nothing from him, only a slight rustling from his cubicle. Okay, maybe I'm losing my mind. Or maybe he doesn't like Game of Thrones. Maybe I wasn't being offensive enough. Yeah, that's it. Shit, Jack, you're being too much of a salesman. Be a dick. So I was. Star Wars sucks giant hairy monkey balls. I screamed at the statement into my mind without opening my lips. What is your problem, Sutman? Go home and watch your football games, or whatever it is you like. And you don't need to be suddenly trying to be a dick. You usually are one. My fingers were still tightly pressing my lips together. It was actually starting to hurt. This is impossible. He's reading my mind. Fucking douchey nerd boy. Hey, Sutman Suit, why don't you just fuck off? I don't think I need your shit today. He stood up. Now, Nerd Boy is a big guy, standing 3 inches taller than me, and he is certainly much wider than me. However, his girth is not muscle, but all flab, probably from eating Cheetos on his couch all day while masturbating to Lord of the Rings. I considered the stick, normally my go-to in a situation like this, but I was scared. The shock was wearing off and I was frightened, not of physical harm, but when something impossible happens to you, it can mess you up, it could confuse you, as it did me, and it could scare you. So, I did as he requested. I fucked off. Hey guys, thanks for watching, or listening, or whatever you did. This is a longer story. So I'm going to divide it into 3 parts. I could have probably gotten away with dividing it into 2 parts, but it would definitely be over 20 minutes if I did it if I did all 3 parts together. So 3 parts it is. Hope you liked it. I'll probably continue this, but not immediately. I want to see how YouTube reacts to this. It's more contemporary, so it's got a lot more bad words than what would normally be in these stories. So I'm going to put it out there, see what happens. I'll probably do the next 2 parts eventually. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Bye.